Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plotlines. I'm your host, Connor, and today we're going to be going through my latest episode of the fairy tales. And today we're going to be talking about the fisherman and his wife. Now, these are all what I've gone through is Grimm's fairy tales. So these are most likely come from Germany. So and that's going to become clear why that's important, that it's in Germany and not from anywhere else, because these story there's a lot of stuff from these stories that makes sense with being in Germany. So basically, the beginning of the story, it takes place where a fisherman and his wife are living in a hovel, and the fisherman goes out to fish, and he catches a flounder, and the flounder says, "Listen here, fisherman. I beg of you, let me live. I am not a real flounder, but an enchanted prince. So what would it benefit you to kill me? I certainly wouldn't taste very good. Put me back into the water and let me go." And the fisherman lets the flounder go and says, "I wouldn't have, I would have let you go even if you weren't an enchanted prince, but because you're a talking fish, I wouldn't want to eat you," basically. And then the fisherman goes back to his wife, and the wife basically gets mad at him for not asking the fish for a wish, and the and because they live in a this hovel, this very poor house, the wife asks, or tell not asks, she really doesn't ask anything in this. She tells the fisherman to go back to the flounder and tell him that his wish, or her wish really, but she's trying to say your wish, but really it's only hers, is for a cottage. And the fisherman doesn't want to do this. He's really but he also doesn't want to disappoint his wife. So he goes back to the sea, and he says, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, if you're a man, then speak to me. Though I do not care for my wife's requests, I've come to ask it nonetheless." And the fish responds. The flounder says, "Well, what does she want?" Which I think is kind of amusing, just the way the flounder responds. Um, and the wife wants a cottage, and the fish says, "Just go home. She already's got it," which kind of makes me think of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. "We already got one." They're looking for the Grail, and they've already have one. Um, but so they go. He goes back. He finds his wife sitting on the porch, and basically, she's not satisfied. She's much more satisfied at the beginning, of course, but she decides that this cottage isn't good enough, even though her husband, the fisherman, thinks it's plenty good. And she orders him to go and ask the flounder um for a castle, which I think is a bit of a step up, from a cottage to castle. I don't know if that is the next situation, but it's just quite interesting to me. And he goes back and says the same thing: "Flounder, flounder in the sea, if you're a man, then speak to me. Though I do not care for my wife's request, I've come to ask it nonetheless." I just enjoy those rhymes. I enjoy the fact that it's that he repeats the same thing. I know it can become a little annoying or tedious, but it's very interesting to me. It's very entertaining. I think, though, because I didn't grow up with fairy tales in this sort of way, I find it more amusing. Maybe others who grew up with them maybe find it more tedious or annoying. Anyways, he asks again for a castle. The flounder says, "Just go home." She's already standing at the gate. So they've got a castle, and everything's golden, crystal chandeliers, um, marble hall, marble floor, I should say, with lots of servants. So apparently, this enchanted prince flounder has the ability to conjure servants as well, which I find funny. Anyways, it's beautiful. Everything that you could imagine in a castle. And the wife's contented for a second, and the next morning she's upset, and now she wants to be a king, which I think is weird because she doesn't say I want to be a queen. I don't know if that's because she's saying like I want you to be a king, but you don't want it. So, but I know better what you want for yourself, or it's making some other connotations. I don't know, but it's quite interesting, and he's like, really, do you really want to be a king? Like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to be a king. So, and then, but the wife persists, and the husband goes back to the flounder, asks to make his wife a king, and yep, she gets it again. She becomes a king, whatever that means, and she now has a golden crown and a throne and everything in her castle. She is again, and she cannot be pleased, really. She now then wants to become an emperor, but there is only one emperor, because this is Germany, Holy Roman Empire. There is only one emperor, and of course, well, you could also think if it's yeah, either way, there's only one emperor. You can't have more than one emperor. Roman Empire, I guess you could argue, but I don't. Anyways, this wasn't the time of that. So same situation, but the sea becomes more turbulent over time. It becomes less clear. It becomes more dirty. Becomes more dangerous. But eventually, she gets what she wants. She becomes an emperor. Then she wants to be a pope, which I think is really weird, very odd. And then same thing. She gets to become the pope, and basically she gets a little Vatican City for herself, which is ridiculous. Well, when she became the king, she wanted to rule the land, and then emperor. I don't. It's just crazy. Obviously, I'm skipping some details, but now she want. But eventually, she says, she wakes up. She hits her husband in the ribs with her elbow and says, "Husband, wake up and go to the flounder. Tell him I want to be God." The husband was still half asleep, but he was so shocked what she had said that he fell out of bed. He thought that he had misheard her and rubbed his eyes, and he couldn't believe it. And she keeps pushing him. She's furious that every time he said he can make you an emperor and the pope, but I beg you, uh, be content and stay pope, which I think is just so weird. Um, and eventually he goes down. The sky was completely pitch black, and there was thunder and lightning. Black waves rose up into the sea so high as church steeples and mountains, and they all had crests of white from on top. Then the fisherman screamed, but he could not even hear his own words. "Flounder, flounder in the sea. If you're a man, then speak to me. Though I do not care for my wife's request, I've come to ask it nonetheless." The flounder says, "Well, what does she want?" "Oh," he said, "she wants to be like God. Go back home. She's sitting in your hovel again." And there they are, still living this very day. So everything's everything's taken away from them. It's so glorious. This lady is insufferable. But this man is so weak that he can't prevent himself from uh following every whim of his wife, even when it becomes utterly ridiculous. I was thinking about this. It reminds me very much of sort of the feminists and even the transgender stuff. They're pushing for things over the course of time. Women want the right to vote, and they want to change people's view of women, and they want to, then they get the pill, and um then they want to, work all the time, and then they want to be CEOs, then they want to be officers in the military, and then you have people who want to be men, women who want to be men, men who want to be women. You could see that, like, becoming getting a castle or getting a cottage is reasonable. It's possible. It's And then becoming king becomes ludicrous, because she'd be a queen, not a king. She's a woman. And then you get move on to emperor, but there can only be one emperor. And then then you get to pope, which is utterly ridiculous. And then you get even more ridiculous. You get more desiring. You want to be unto God. You want to be God. And this woman really just wanted everything she could possibly lay her hands on, and everything will come crumbling down, because it's not reality. It's not possible. Just even if you can sort of maintain the semblance of it, it's just not real. And eventually, like this flounder, once they get too, sort of too demanding, it all crashes down around them. So look out for that in our future. That's coming. That's coming, and that's probably, just as this supposedly kingdom collapses, this imperialship collapses, this papacy collapses, supposedly. Just as these corrupt institutions, other than the papacy, will collapse in on itself, probably in reality. Anything that is not real, but just a people telling themselves that things are real, but have no real meaning, like feminism, as I said, will crash down upon its terrible head. So that's a bit of a fun story. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and have a blessed day. Bye.